Hello and welcome back to Disciple. You remember in our last session we looked back to where we've come from as churches and how God called us from nothing to where we are now.
So where are we now? What's our vision? And what do we do? These are all questions we're going to answer in this session, which I hope will give you a sense of God's call for us here. But first, Abby, you haven't been at St James that long, so how on earth did you end up here?
So about 3 years ago now, I was in sixth form. I joined a new school where I didn't know anyone. I grew up in a Christian household, but I didn't really go to church anymore since I was younger. So I kind of just would say I was a Christian, but never really acted on it. So when I went to sixth form, made friends. These girls were Christians, and I called myself a Christian. So we had that in common. And on the first week of school, the St James chaplaincy team come in and say we're going to start Youth Alpha. So I was like, oh, that seems interesting. I've never done anything like that before. So me and my friends, we want to try this out. So then we basically started going to that every Thursday, and obviously in school we'd have our little moments where we'd be stressed and we'd have our breakdowns, but then this was our time to kind of wind down and kind of include God into that time where we were stressed all the time. And it was nice to just build relationships with the youth workers as well. To this day we're still really close. And a couple of months after we started doing Alpha, they invited us to come to Focus, which is a camp run by HTB, and it's churches all around the network coming together to worship and to just receive for a weekend, which is really good as the whole church family. And I think for me that was a very pivotal moment in my journey, because first of all I hadn't really connected with a church family as a teenager. So yeah, after Focus I realised a lot that God was teaching me about my journey and how he was there from the very beginning. And I continued going to St James after Focus and got involved with worship here as well, and it's definitely helped me grow a lot, and God's just been there the whole time. So
wow, well that's amazing. Thank you for sharing your story with us. And isn't it amazing how God used the chaplaincy team and the youth outreach team to connect you and bring you along that journey, that path that God had for you, and now you're involved here. Before we go any further with our session today, here's a couple of questions for you to look at together. What do you think about Abby's story? And then what do you think about being part of a church that wants to reach out to people of all ages, stages and backgrounds to share the good news of Jesus with them? Final question, could you see yourself being part of a church like that?
Welcome back, Jude and Hannah. That was an amazing story we've just heard from Abby. So how does that fit in with our vision of what God is calling us into?
Yeah, I love Abby's story as well. It's so wonderful, isn't it? And it's all about, resourcing the next generation. And, your favourite little illustration, Jude often talks about handing on the baton to the next generation.
I think where that's come from is just a sort of recognition that actually as a church, the wider church, we haven't been particularly good at handing on the baton of faith to those who come after us. And I think there's all sorts of reasons for that. We know that the church culturally is on the back foot. We really want, in the DNA of this church, for everybody to be thoughtful, intentional about handing on the baton of faith to those who come after them. And that can take all sorts of different shapes, but that's what we're longing for. Let's be serious about that. Let's be up for it. Let's have it in the forefront of our minds, handing on the baton of faith, resourcing the next generation.
And is that the same at St Mary's?
Yes, absolutely. We want everybody at St Mary's to be intentional about passing on the baton of faith. There's about 8,500 people in the parish of St Mary's, and about a third of them are under the age of 30. And the ones under the age of 30 are not well represented in churches generally in that area. So we've got some real work to do, resourcing the next generation, making space for younger people in that church. But we also want to be mindful of the whole of the age range as well, and older folks, retireds, people at different life stages there. The big vision is, for all churches, we want to see more people knowing Jesus, more of God's kingdom, more of God's love and justice in the world. And that's our big prayer. And so St. James and St. Mary's about people coming to faith, growing in faith, finding their place in church, Christian community.
So in terms of helping us to fulfill this vision, we often talk about missional pathways. So what does that mean and who are they for?
Well, missional pathways, I mean, are for everybody, every person. And missional pathways are a bit like stepping stones, and just recognising people are at different points in their journey. And, you know, actually these days it is unlikely that a person will just rock up to church. And so it's a great opportunity for us, and we love doing it. We love going out and, you know, doing events, doing activities where we get to know people and build relationships. It's a stepping stone. It might not be into church yet, but we're getting to know them. And then, you know, they go along to different things, and eventually they might end up knowing Jesus and they might end up coming to church. But it's all about these little stepping stones and getting to know people.
We talk now, don't we, a lot about the Christian faith being a journey. You know, a journey of discovery, of who God is, of who we are, made in God's image, of what it means to be part of a Christian community, to follow Jesus for ourselves. And so kind of just, recognising the kind of the journey, the stepping stones, the pathway into that. And we use some language around that. So we have this idea of sowing, reaping and keeping. And so different events will have maybe different kinds of content and different kinds of experience for folks as they begin that journey perhaps into Christian community. A group of lads play football on Wednesday nights, and so that's almost like a kind of first contact thing, just building friendships at that point. But hey, as that goes on, you know, people might be inviting friends who they're meeting through the football out for drinks, maybe going along to one of our men's curry nights perhaps, maybe hearing the beginnings of this person of Jesus and who he is and what it might look like to follow Jesus. Just the sowing seeds of faith in the beginning. But then as people express interest and kind of continue on that journey, hey, well maybe they might like to do an Alpha course and bring their own questions of life and faith into a forum, a safe forum and space where they can look at those questions with other people. You know, they may get to a point where they're ready to make the beginnings of a Christian commitment for themselves. Fantastic, praise God. So maybe that might be the keeping, the reaping stage, in the pathway. And then finally, there's something about keeping. Well, you know, for those of us who are making an ongoing commitment to follow Jesus, to try to follow Jesus in our whole lives, well, then there's midweek groups, there's connect groups, there's Sunday services. There's a sense of being part of a church community, a Christian community, going on that journey into the future with others. And that's kind of recognizing that 95% of people are not in church, that there's that Jesus sent out the 12, sent out the 72. He says, doesn't he, Jesus, Matthew 28, go and make disciples of all nations. We have a commission to respond to that Jesus invites us into. And so missional pathways is just one way of making sense of that and help us to be as fruitful as we can be.
Hey, it was great to hear from Jude and Hannah. And the last thing we talked about was a missional pathway. Well, that's a really important part of our churches here. And so let's take a look at what a missional pathway looks like. Well, that's all well and good, but one of the things I'd love to do is go around and see what this looks like in the life of other people in the church as well.
So I came just after Christmas, I think it was the second one of the new year, and then Jude was speaking, and I think there was like one or two things that I can't quite remember now, but they stood out to me, and I was like, oh, maybe there's a bit more to this. And then obviously I had my kid here, and she loved the songs, so that seeing her smile, I was like, well, I can't miss that. So I was definitely coming back the next week, and there was like a card about Alpha, and it had been spoke about it. And I scanned it, and I looked, and I was like, oh no, I'll leave it, and then was just walking the dog around because we don't live too far, and came past again, and I was like, oh, I wonder if that card's in my pocket, and it was. So I scanned it again, and I signed up. And then Jude had invited us to like a welcome lunch a few times, and I was like, well, we'll have to go because we'll have to like make space, time to go. So we went, and then there was like that. It was nice to be like welcomed and like brought into like the church family kind of thing.
Because we were welcomed so well in that first week, that we just felt like people were invested in us and they wanted us to be there, because we've been to a few churches where we would go in as a group, they would think, oh, they're in a group, they're fine, that type. So probably the community, like we walked in and instantly it was like people to chat to, people wanted to get to know us. There was a little welcome card right in front of us, like, oh, do you want to like sign, do you want to fill this out so we can keep in contact? It was, I think the community vibe was definitely why we stayed.
So I was really fortunate to find Minis. So Minis is a toddler group held in St James, and it's just a space like no other. It's the most welcoming, friendly, happy space that I've been in, and I've been in a lot of soft play. And yeah, it's a great space for children, it's a great space for families, and it's really given me the opportunity to build like a lot of relationships with different families, different mums, and it's given me the opportunity to have really interesting discussions with people across the church as well. I think what is brilliant about Minis in particular is that because it's got a great staff from the church, you know, everyone's really well equipped to have those conversations about faith and having spiritual discussions, and it's really well facilitated, so you feel like it's a natural part of spending time with your family, and I've really enjoyed that. And a big part of that led to going on to Alpha at St Mary's. Yeah. So Alpha's been a brilliant opportunity, and again, it's given me an opportunity to meet people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and have great, interesting conversations about faith, and really interrogate those questions in a safe space, and you know, a non-judgmental space as well, Mike. It's been lovely to feel really well supported, I guess.
Great.
And I've really enjoyed doing Alpha, and we were talking a little bit about next steps, and we were thinking about Connect course, which is a natural progression from Alpha, also the Disciples course, which we talked a little bit about in St Mary's. So yeah, they're really amazing options to think about and to be supported by an incredible community, really, who've just made me feel excited about exploring my faith rather than really nervous about asking questions.
I started with the youth, so I connected to St James because they came to my school, and then we did like Bible studies with them and stuff, and then from that we were quite the older youth when we joined in, so we were in year 13, so there wasn't a lot of youth in the same age as us, so we joined for the student group, and from the get-go everyone was our age, we became friends with everyone, and it was nice having a good group of Christian friends around us. We had that in secondary school as well, because we were in a Christian secondary school, so it was so nice having that again, and like having those group of friends that you can hold each other accountable and, you know, just worship Jesus freely. And it felt so good, and I feel like I found, like as Gabby said, like a really good settled community here.
Alpha's been really good because it's brought a lot of people together that wouldn't really come into the church, and to come and do that. And also I can see the point of Alpha, because it's like going back to the roots of Christianity.
I've really enjoyed being at St Mary's. I started coming to St Mary's in January and wasn't quite sure what I'd get involved in. Became very involved in Alpha. Really enjoyed that sort of the behind the scenes stuff, sort of admin, pudding. I'm very good with pudding. Just really enjoyed that on the Bible reading rota. I think the church has just been really up for change. So that's been really exciting. We're definitely on a journey. We don't know quite where we're going. We're trying some things might not work, but I think the great thing about St Mary's is everyone's up for having a go and seeing what happens really, and seeing where Jesus leads us.
So I'm part of a football community that runs at St James and is aimed at men 18 plus basically, and we've been so blessed by God in terms of the numbers and the variety of people and personalities that we've had play football with us. It's such a game that brings us all together and unites people, and so to be able to build relationships through that, and we've gotten to a point now where, you know, over 50% of our attendees don't go to church regularly, and so that's been a really affirming place to be. We're really seeing Jesus in that.
One thing I love about youth is coming on Thursdays to see friends, and I also love to talk shop.
What I like about youth is how the adults let the kids get involved with like youth takeover and everything, and I also like coming on Thursday nights and playing games and seeing my friends.
One thing I love about youth is the places that we go to have bigger worship groups and learn more about faith in somewhere different to church.
At St James we're part of a Connect group, which we're actually part of a Connect group, and the majority of them are much older than ourselves, which actually has been so like wonderful in terms of growing our faith and getting wisdom from people that you might not necessarily like naturally, you know, in your age group or whatever. But actually from that we've gained so much wisdom and from these people, but also it's been such a valuable tool in faith and growing in our faith, and it's been a highlight of our week every week. We've been like, can't fault it.
Being a parent or a family, like, it can be sometimes hard to like keep a common thing that we found with other families is the pressure to kind of keep reading the Bible, because your life has changed and it is quite hectic. So I found it really helpful to find other parents or families in St James that have had the same like almost struggles in a way, like with reading the Bible, or they've just had a need to want to pursue God a little bit more. Yeah. So when I found that person that's also like me, we've been able to meet up and do a little Bible study together. Yeah. It's not high intensity like Bible study, it can just be like 10 minutes a day. And if you miss it, it's fine, there's no pressure, it's not like homework or whatever. Yeah. It's just nice, keeping each other accountable, encouraging each other as parents with busy lives.
Sometimes it's easy to kind of just get into that rhythm of just, I don't know, you're sort of pedaling along, just sort of living your life, doing your job. And it's really nice to have church and sort of people around you who you can share some of those, oh, I had like a really rubbish day at work today, or I had a really good day at work today. Like, we're part of a Connect group, and one of the things that we do when we pray together is like share something like a praise point for the week and something that we want prayer for. So even having people around you that you can share those encouragements, but also those things that you want prayer for or you're struggling with while you're just trying to figure out what the structure of sort of your life looks like.
Following on from that, like we were saying, you know, we're starting jobs and like all these things that go on in your life when life's can feel really rocky when you're like transitioning from student to adult, or you move in job, or you've got whatever on, and like a lot of our Connect group are people living away from home, so you're kind of a little isolated. And being rooted in church, and by rooted I just mean having friends and relationships with people in a church community, it in that sense it grounds you, because you remember on a Sunday, I'm held, like I have a relationship with Jesus, that's going to sustain me. Oh, I'm going to see people on Wednesday, or I'm going to remember to pray for that person. And I think in the sort of storms of life and the praise points of life, you've got people to walk with.
Yeah. There was all sorts of things going on for families, like both on a Sunday with all the kids provision, and in the church service with the amazing family worship songs, which we absolutely loved and like used to sing all the time, and even, you know, spread these songs to our friends as well, and then also like at the weekends and things like that. So that was definitely a big part of why we joined St James in the first place. And then I think having our family and our kids be in community, not just with other families, but like with the whole spread of people at St James. So, you know, having students there, having, you know, single people there, all sorts of people. I think it's really beneficial for children as they grow up to have good relationships with people from all different like walks of life, really.
Monday nights are my favourite night of like the whole week, because it's so good, like coming in and like having that place where you can eat together, you can pray together, you can worship Jesus together. But also we have nights where it's like just like social nights that you can bring people, and I've brought like friends that aren't Christian or like religious at all, and it's kind of changed their perspective of church and being like, oh wait, church is actually a loving place and it's fun. And they don't have to come on Sundays when it's like intense and everyone's like mid-worship. So it's quite nice just to come and see what church can be. And also I feel like with students as well, everyone's been given so many different opportunities. I know so many of my friends have been given opportunities to worship or, you know, to pray or even like do the talk and like, you know, and I've been given those opportunities as well. And I feel like students really enhances what your gifts are and allows you to work on your gifts, if that makes sense.
Really, we need the faith of others to hold us up. You know, I think about the paralysed man whose faith of his friends brought him to Jesus. And that's, I think, what we see our roles in our Connect group is when we've got people who are really struggling with their faith and wrestling with the big questions. Even as young adults, you know, feel like you should have sort of done that by now. You know, you've been a young person, you've asked your questions, you've committed your life to be a Christian, you should be done. But no, especially when, you know, you're a young adult and you enter this new season of life, it's really important to have the faith of your community and the faith of others around you to lift you up. And to be able to say, I'm not sure how much I'm getting on with God today, you know, whether I'm angry at him or upset with him or even think he's not real anymore. And to be able to have Christian community and friends to say that's okay because we have faith and we're praying for you and we are with you. And you know, you can still walk through our doors into our Connect group, you know, no matter where you are, because the best place for you to be is here with us in community. And that's so important to remember, I think.
For us as Christians, we need each other. God connects with us through relationships and we have a relationship with him. And I don't think we can have a very good relationship with him if we're not in relationship with other people.
I serve quite heavily on the youth team, and I think just serving in any way that you can. So I remember like my first year, I was on the refreshments team for a bit, I think, and I was on the youth team, and like we have a great thing called Serve Sunday, which is just like stalls around church of every single ministry. And like when I, you know, started youth team, I was freshly 18. Like I just left youth, so in my head it was the easiest thing to get involved in because I knew what it was. But like you can serve as like, I think serving is so great because it also, it's almost like intergenerational thing of like, you aren't just in your student bubble. Like I obviously I'm with the youth, but I'm also with other volunteers who are young adults and families and stuff like that. And I think it's a great place to meet other people and to just get involved on a deeper level. I think it's helped me spiritually as well to see the young people grow, has helped me to grow.
Don't purely rely on the Sundays, because I think St James has experienced this growth over the last 2 years, and the fruitfulness of this building project and the beautiful building we're sitting in now. We've seen the church grow into this building, and so St James is starting to change to a point where Sundays give you the community, but in order to enhance those relationships, it's important that we are getting involved with socials. We are going to Connect groups. We are doing things like football, going on the walking socials with the STJ men's or the women's nights and things like that have really allow you that space and time to deepen those relationships with people. Because I think when we've found the faith side of church, or just our faith in general, really challenging, it's the people that have kept us in it. And I think that's what it's coming back to as we've been talking this evening, is the people make all the difference. So, and I don't think that we would experience the same fruitfulness of community if we were just going on a Sunday or going every so often on a Sunday, really plugging into, we commit to the morning service, really committing to that, really committing to connect groups and other things in our week. Whilst it makes our week busier, it makes our weeks better. And so I think that's the big thing I would say.
Well, that's just a few people's views, but what about you? So what do you like about church at St Mary's or St James? Which part of the missional pathways do you most relate to? And which part do you least relate to? And where could you get more involved on the missional pathways?
So we're a church that want to bring as many people as possible into a personal encounter and relationship with God through Jesus Christ. We do that by sowing the gospel into people's lives through prayer and relationships, then by reaping the results of the gospel in their hearts by helping them discover and follow Jesus for themselves, and then keeping them strong in the faith through community, connect groups, Sunday worship, ministry, giving and service, all of which help them stay strong and yet more people discover Jesus for themselves.
There are many people of all ages all around us, like Abby, who you and I can help to find real faith in Jesus. It can really happen. So here's our final questions as we wish to finish today. Number 1, who can you think of in your life who doesn't yet know Jesus? Number 2, how can our churches help you to help others discover Jesus? Number 3, what are you most challenged by today? And number 4, what are your next steps?
And just one more thing, in the week ahead we invite you to take a look at the parable of the sower from Mark chapter 4 verses 1 to 20, along with the questions in your course booklet as we think about how to be people who sow God's word and watch God grow his kingdom in their lives today.